Captain Minho Kang stood on the bridge of the Resilience, watching the massive structure ahead grow larger on the screen. The Galactic Council station looked like a floating city made of crystal and light. 3 months ago, humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel. 2 months ago, they had sent their first message to the stars. Today, they would meet their neighbors. "Captain, we're receiving docking instructions," said Lieutenant Hana Bay, the ship's chief scientist. She had spent years studying alien languages, preparing for this moment. Her hands trembled slightly as she worked at her console. Behind Minho stood Ambassador Taeyang Park, dressed in formal Earth diplomatic attire. He was calm, but Minho could see the tension in his shoulders. Everything humanity had worked for came down to this meeting. The docking procedure took 30 minutes. When the airlock finally opened, they were greeted by 3 aliens. The tallest one had blue skin and 4 arms. The second looked like a floating jellyfish covered in lights. The third was small and covered in silver fur. None of them smiled. Humans smiled when greeting others. These beings did not. "Welcome," the blue alien said through a translation device. "I am Velmoth, High Arbiter of the Galactic Council. We have much to discuss about your species." The tone made Minho uncomfortable. It sounded like a teacher about to scold a student. They were led through endless corridors to a massive chamber. Inside, hundreds of aliens sat in curved rows, all facing a central platform. The diversity was stunning. Some looked like birds, others like insects or fish. Some were made of energy, others of crystal, but they all turned to stare at the 3 humans with the same expression. Suspicion, Ambassador Taeyang stepped forward. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, humanity greets you with open hearts and peaceful intentions. We come seeking friendship and knowledge." Silence followed his words. Then Velmoth activated a large display screen. Images began to play. Images from Earth's history: wars, atomic bombs exploding, cities burning, forests cut down, oceans polluted, animals going extinct. The images kept coming, each one worse than the last. Minho felt his stomach turn. This was humanity's history, shown without context or explanation. "This is what your species has done to your own planet," Velmoth announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. "In just 10,000 years of civilization, you have nearly destroyed your world multiple times. You created weapons that could end all life. You poisoned your own air and water. You killed millions of your own kind in conflicts over resources and beliefs." Taeyang tried to respond. "Yes, our history has darkness, but we have reviewed your historical records completely," Velmoth interrupted. "We know about your nuclear weapons. We know about your experiments with artificial intelligence. We know that your species has only been united under one government for 5 years. Before that, you were divided into competing nations, constantly at war." Another council member spoke, this one resembling a tree with glowing branches. "The Galactic Council has existed for 50,000 years. In that time, we have maintained peace across 847 species. We have done this through careful rules and protocols. We have survived by being cautious about who we allow into our community." A bird-like alien added, "Most species that join us evolved from prey animals. We understand cooperation because we needed it to survive. You humans evolved from predators. You are apex hunters. Your entire psychology is built on violence and competition." Minho clenched his fists. Everything they said was technically true, but it missed so much. It missed the art, the music, the philosophy. It missed the fact that humans had also shown incredible compassion and creativity. Dr. Hana Bay stepped forward. "Council members, please listen. Yes, we have made mistakes. Yes, our history includes violence, but we have also shown the ability to change. We ended slavery. We created human rights. We stopped using nuclear weapons. We united our entire planet under one peaceful government. We learned from our errors." Velmoth's eyes, all 4 of them, narrowed. "Or perhaps you simply ran out of others to conquer and turned your violent nature outward to the stars." The voting began immediately. No more discussion. No chance to defend themselves further. Minho watched as the numbers appeared on the display. 723 votes for isolation. 124 votes against. "The decision is made," Velmoth announced. "Humanity will be placed under total isolation protocol. Your solar system will be surrounded by quantum barriers. No ships will be able to enter or leave. This is for the protection of the galactic community." Taeyang's face went pale. "You're imprisoning us? Locking us away?" "We are protecting the galaxy from a dangerous species. Velmoth replied coldly. The barriers will remain until humanity either evolves beyond its violent nature or destroys itself. Based on our projections, we estimate you have 200 years before internal conflicts cause the collapse of your civilization. If you somehow survive and mature as a species, we will reconsider in 1,000 years. This is wrong, Minho said, his voice shaking with anger. You're judging us without understanding us. We understand perfectly, the tree-like alien said. You are predators. We are not. You cannot be trusted. They were escorted back to their ship quickly. The airlock sealed behind them. As the Resilience undocked, Taiyang turned to the communications console. He knew this would be the last message Earth could send to the Council for a very long time. High Arbiter Velmoth, Council members, hear me clearly. Taiyang spoke into the recorder. You have made a terrible mistake today. You looked at our history and saw only violence. You looked at our nature and saw only danger. But you missed what makes us truly human. You will regret this choice. Not because we will hate you or seek revenge, but because you have misunderstood what humanity really is. He paused, then added, We are survivors. We adapt, we overcome. You think locking us away will contain us. Instead, you have given us the one thing humans have always thrived on. A challenge. When we meet again, and we will meet again, you will see what isolated humanity has become. I only hope you will be ready for it. The message was sent. Moments later, the quantum barriers activated. Minho watched as a shimmer of energy surrounded the entire solar system. Earth and all its colonies were now cut off from the galaxy. What do we do now? Hana asked quietly. Minho looked at the barrier, then back at his crew. A small smile crossed his face. Now we show them what happens when you back humans into a corner. We don't give up. We never give up. The Resilience turned and began the long journey home. Behind them, the Galactic Council congratulated themselves on containing a threat. They had no idea they had just made their biggest mistake in 50,000 years. 30 years had passed since the barriers went up. Jiho Choi had been born 2 years after the isolation began. He had never seen the stars without the shimmer of the quantum barrier surrounding them. To him, this was normal. The cage was all he had ever known. Now 28 years old, Jiho worked in the largest engineering facility humanity had ever built. It floated in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, a massive structure of metal and glass. Through the windows he could see dozens of ships being constructed. Not exploration vessels like the Resilience had been. These were warships. Run the simulation again, Jiho told his team. Lines of data flowed across the screens. He was trying to understand the quantum barriers. For 30 years, the best minds on Earth had studied them. The barriers let them see out but stopped all ships from passing through. They were a prison wall made of twisted space and energy. On Earth, the isolation had changed everything. The panic of the first year had been terrible. People rioted. Governments nearly fell apart. But humans had something the Galactic Council did not understand. When pushed to the edge, humans did not break. They adapted. The world's nations had merged into one government, the Global Unity Council. Every resource was pooled. Every scientist worked toward the same goals. Humanity could not trade with aliens, could not learn from their technology, could not explore beyond their solar system, so they built everything themselves. Commander Narration walked through the orbital shipyard inspecting the newest vessel. She had been a lieutenant when the barriers went up. Now she commanded Earth's Outer Defense Force, a fleet of 3,000 ships. They had no one to fight, but they were ready anyway. The Phoenix is almost complete, her assistant reported. Fusion drives operational. Weapon systems at 90%. We can have her combat ready in 3 weeks, Nari nodded. Good. Add her to the 7th Battle Group. She did not say what everyone thought. Who were they preparing to fight? The Galactic Council had trapped them but showed no signs of aggression. The barriers remained, silent and unchanging. Yet humanity built weapons anyway, because that was what humans did. They prepared. They survived. In a laboratory on Earth, Dr. Yuna Im stared at equations that covered an entire wall. She had spent 10 years studying the barriers. Her colleagues thought she was obsessed. They were probably right. It's not impossible, she muttered, marking another calculation. It's just very, very difficult. The barriers worked by folding space in a specific pattern. The pattern was incredibly complex, maintained by buoys positioned around the entire solar system. But Yuna had found something. A weakness, Not a hole, but a rhythm. The barriers pulsed, adjusting to maintain their field. In those tiny moments of adjustment, there was a gap. Not big enough for a ship. Not yet. But it proved the barriers could be broken. She reached for her communicator. I need to speak with Admiral Kang. Minho Kang was 73 years old now. His hair was white, his face lined with wrinkles. But his eyes were still sharp. He listened to Yuna's explanation carefully. So we could get through? He asked. Theoretically, yes. But we would need enormous power and perfect timing. And there is another thing. Yuna pulled up a display. The barriers are not just keeping us in. They are also keeping something out. Minho leaned forward. Explain. I have been monitoring energy patterns. Something has been testing the barriers from the outside. Not the council. Something else. Something that hits the barriers with force trying to break through. This was news. Troubling news. Minho contacted Dr. Hanabe, who now ran the Institute for Galactic Understanding. She had spent 30 years preparing humanity for the day they would rejoin galactic civilization. She taught alien languages, studied their cultures, tried to understand species humans had met only once. Hana, we have a problem, Minho said. Something is attacking the barriers from outside. Hana pulled up her own data. I know, I have been tracking it too. The attack started 5 years ago. They are getting stronger. She showed him recordings from the observation stations. The barriers could not stop light or radio waves, only physical objects. Humanity had been watching the galaxy, unable to participate but able to observe. What they saw was disturbing. Alien colonies were going dark. Worlds that had shown lights and activity were suddenly silent. The Galactic Council's communication network showed signs of panic, though the content was encrypted. Something is attacking them, Hana said quietly. Something they cannot stop. Jiho's research breakthrough came on a cold Tuesday morning. He had been studying the pattern of attacks on the barriers when he noticed something. The attacker was not random. It was organized, intelligent. It hit the barriers at their weakest points, testing defenses systematically. This is military strategy, he told his team. Whoever this is, they think like we do. He sent his data to Nari Song. She reviewed it with her tactical officers. They all reached the same conclusion. This was an invasion force, and the barriers that imprisoned humanity were also protecting them from it. The observation posts tracked the invaders' progress. World after world fell silent. The attacks were spreading, moving inward through council space. Humanity watched, unable to help, unable to warn, unable to do anything but observe. On the council's capital world, hidden cameras showed emergency sessions. The council was in chaos. Their military forces were failing. 50,000 years of peace had left them unprepared for war. One junior council member, Larin, argued for contacting Earth. Humanity had experience with war. Humans understood conflict. Maybe they could help. The proposal was rejected immediately. Velmoth, still High Arbiter, refused to even consider it. We will not unleash one monster to fight another, he declared. 30 years of isolation had transformed humanity. They had developed artificial intelligence far beyond anything the Council allowed. They had created self-replicating mining systems that had turned the asteroid belt into an industrial complex. They had extended human lifespans, enhanced human abilities through genetic engineering, and connected human minds directly to computers, all technologies the Council forbade. All technologies humanity had perfected alone. Nari stood in the command center watching the displays. The invasion was getting closer. At their current rate, the invaders would reach Earth's barriers within 2 years. We need to be ready, she told her staff. Not just to defend. We need to be ready to fight back. Minho called a meeting of Earth's leadership. Military commanders, scientists, politicians. They gathered in the Global Unity Council chambers. The question is simple, Minho said. When the invaders reach us, do we hide behind the barriers? Or do we break free and fight? Yuna spoke up. I can break the barriers. I figured it out last month. We can bring them down whenever we choose. Silence filled the room. The council locked us in here to protect themselves from us, someone said. Why should we help them? Because it is the right thing to do, Hana answered. They were wrong about us. We know that. But we do not prove them wrong by letting billions die. We prove them wrong by being better than they thought we were. The debate lasted hours. Some wanted revenge. Some wanted to stay isolated and safe. But in the end, humanity made its choice. They would prepare. They would wait. And when the time was right, they would show the Galactic Council what they had created through 30 years of isolation. Not monsters. Not savages, but something the galaxy had never seen before. Humans who had been given time to perfect the arts of war and survival without distraction. Jiho looked at the ships being built.
Thousands of them now.
Each one more advanced than anything the Council had. Each one designed by humans who had been forced to innovate alone. They thought they were protecting the galaxy from us, he said to himself. They have no idea they will need us to save it. The barriers shimmered. Beyond them, the galaxy burned, and humanity sharpened its teeth. The first real images of the enemy came on a Wednesday morning. A Council observation drone fleeing from a dying world passed close enough to Earth's barriers that human sensors captured its data stream. Admiral Suman Kwan studied the images in the command center. She had been promoted just last year, given command of the newly formed Terran Expeditionary Fleet. 50,000 ships, all built in secret, all waiting for a day that might never come. But now, looking at these images, she knew that day was approaching fast. The enemy was not a species. It was a swarm. Millions of biomechanical ships that moved like insects, coordinated like a hive mind. They did not negotiate. They did not communicate. They simply consumed everything in their path. How many worlds have they taken? Suman asked. 47 confirmed, her intelligence officer replied. But the data is 3 weeks old. It could be twice that by now. Suman felt cold. 47 worlds. Billions of lives. Gone. On the council capital of Axios Prime, panic had replaced order. Counselor Lauren watched as High Arbiter Velmoth addressed the assembly. The old leader looked tired. His blue skin faded to a dull gray. Our forces have engaged the enemy at the Kethril system, Velmoth announced. The battle lasted 6 hours. We lost 400 ships. The enemy lost approximately 20. The Kethril colonies have been consumed. Murmurs of fear spread through the chamber. 400 council ships for 20 enemy casualties. The mathematics of that exchange were terrifying. Lauren stood. High Arbiter, I must ask again. Should we not contact the humans? They have experience with warfare. They might— No! Velmoth's voice cracked like thunder. We will not release that threat. The humans are dangerous. They would take advantage of our weakness. They might save us, Lauren insisted. Or they might finish what the swarm started, another council member added. The humans are predators. This crisis might be exactly the opportunity they have waited for. The vote was called. Should they contact Earth? 689 votes against. 158 for. The isolation would continue. Lauren returned to his private chambers feeling defeated. But he did not give up. He began secretly broadcasting messages toward Earth's barriers. He knew humans were watching. He hoped they were listening too. Please, his message said in simple English. We were wrong. We need help. Billions are dying, please. The swarm reached Earth's barriers on a Tuesday afternoon, 6 months after the first images. The attack was sudden and massive. Millions of biomechanical ships slammed into the quantum field like a wave hitting a wall. On every human observation post, alarms screamed. Jiho Choi rushed to his station, his heart pounding. This was it. The moment they had prepared for, the barriers held. But barely, the swarm did not stop. For 3 days, they threw themselves against the barriers, testing every point, searching for weakness. The quantum field blazed with energy, lighting up space like a star. Dr. Yuna Im watched her instruments with growing concern. The barriers are draining power. The Council's buoys were not designed for this level of sustained attack. If this continues for another week, sections might fail. Minho Kang, now 80 years old, stood in Earth's Central Command. He had been waiting for this moment for 3 decades. Can we reinforce the barriers from our side? Yes, Yuna replied. But it would take our entire planetary power grid. Earth would go dark for days. Do it, Minho ordered. Cross-Earth lights went out. Cities went dark. Factories stopped. Every watt of power was redirected to maintaining the barriers. Humanity held its breath. The reinforced barriers held. After 4 days, the swarm suddenly stopped attacking. They withdrew, regrouping in space beyond the barrier's edge. But they did not leave. They stayed watching, waiting. They are studying us, Suman said, reviewing the tactical data. They attacked to gather information. Now they know what we have. But humans had learned something too. During the 4-day attack, every sensor, every camera, every instrument had been recording. Humanity now had complete data on the enemy. Their tactics, their weapon systems, their coordination patterns. Jiho analyzed the data for 2 weeks straight. He barely slept. He barely ate. When he finally presented his findings, the War Council listened intently. The swarm is intelligent, but it follows patterns, Jiho explained. It is like a computer program. Very efficient, very deadly, but predictable. They always attack the weakest point first. They always coordinate in groups of exactly 144 units. They always retreat when they lose 20% casualties. Can we beat them? Suman asked. Jiho looked at her directly. Yes, we can beat them. But only if we fight smart. Only if we are willing to take risks the Council would never take. Nari Song had been analyzing Council military tactics by watching their battles through long-range telescopes. What she saw disturbed her. They fight like it is a game, she told her officers. They have rules, protocols. They wait for consensus before acting. They try to minimize casualties even when it means losing battles. They are trying to fight a war without being warriors. Her second-in-command nodded. 50,000 years of peace. They have forgotten how to truly fight. We have not, Nari said quietly. We never forgot. The swarm began moving again, leaving a small force to watch Earth while the main body continued toward Axios Prime. Human observers tracked them, plotting their course, predicting their targets. Council resistance was collapsing. 200 worlds had fallen now. 3 trillion beings dead or assimilated. The Council military kept losing battles using the same failed tactics over and over. On Axios Prime, Velmoth refused to adapt. We have maintained peace for 50 millennia through order and protocol, he declared. We will not abandon our principles now. Then we will die with our principles, Lauren said bitterly. He continued sending secret messages to Earth, begging, pleading. Please help us, please, we were arrogant. We were wrong, but billions of innocent beings are dying. Please. In Earth's command center, they listened to every message. Hanabe translated them, tears running down her face. They are terrified, she said. They finally understand they are not prepared for this. Doyun Seo, Hana's student and protege, had been studying council culture for years. He understood their psychology. They cannot ask us directly. It would mean admitting they were wrong. Admitting that the violent humans were needed after all. The debate began among Earth's leadership. It was fierce. It was emotional. They imprisoned us, someone argued. Let them face the consequences of their decision. We are better than revenge, another countered. We should help because it is right. But can we? A general asked. Even with all our preparations, we are one species. The swarm has defeated 800 others. Suman stood and addressed the council. I have studied the enemy. We can fight them. We can win. But only if we use tactics the council would never accept. We must be willing to sacrifice ships. We must be willing to attack aggressively. We must be willing to be the predators the council fears. Hana spoke last. Yes, they judged us unfairly. Yes, they locked us away. But think about why. They looked at our history and saw violence. So let them see what human violence can truly be. Not cruelty, not conquest, but violence in defense of those who cannot defend themselves. She paused, then continued. They saw our wars and thought we were monsters. Let them see us fight and realize we only become monsters to protect others from real monsters. The vote was close. In the end, humanity chose to act. Yuna Im prepared to drop the barriers. Suman mobilized the expeditionary fleet. Jiho armed the weapon systems. Nari readied the defense forces. Minho Kang stood before the cameras to address Earth and all its colonies. His hands trembled slightly, but his voice was strong. For 31 years we have been isolated, imprisoned, judged as too dangerous for civilized company. Today we break free, not for conquest, not for revenge, but because beings are dying and we have the power to help them. The galaxy will finally see what isolated humanity has become. Let us show them that humans at our most dangerous are humans protecting others. The barriers fell. 50,000 ships emerged from Earth's solar system, weapons armed, shields raised, crews ready. The Galactic Council was about to learn what happens when you cage predators and then ask them to hunt. The Terran Expeditionary Fleet moved through space like a spear. 50,000 ships, organized into battle groups coordinated by AI systems the Council had forbidden. Admiral Suman Kwan stood on the bridge of her flagship. the Indomitable, and watched the tactical displays. All groups reporting ready, her communications officer announced. Suman nodded. Set course for Axios Prime, maximum speed. The Council capital was under siege. Human long-range sensors showed millions of swarm ships surrounding it, slowly overwhelming the defenses. The Council had maybe 3 days left. Maybe less. The human fleet would arrive in 2. On Axios Prime, High Arbiter Velmoth watched the orbital defenses fall one by one. The swarm was relentless. Every time Council forces destroyed one enemy ship, 3 more took its place. High Arbiter, a military commander reported, his voice shaking. The eastern defense grid has collapsed. They are landing on the surface. Evacuation of the capital city has begun, but there is no time. We have failed. Velmoth felt ancient and foolish. 50,000 years of peace. 50,000 years of careful diplomacy and protocol. All of it useless against an enemy that did not care about rules. Counselor Lauren burst into the command center. High Arbiter! Our deep space sensors have detected something. More swarm forces? Velmoth asked tiredly. No, Lauren said, his voice filled with something Velmoth had not heard in months. Hope. Ships. 50,000 of them. Moving at incredible speed. They are broadcasting on all frequencies. It is the humans. The recording played. Admiral Suman Kwan's face appeared on screens across Axios Prime. Her expression was hard but determined. Galactic Council. This is the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. We are here to save you. Whether you like it or not. Velmoth stared at the screen in shock. The humans. They came. After everything we did to them, Lauren said quietly. They came anyway. The first engagement happened at the outer edge of the Axios system. A swarm battle group detected the human fleet and moved to intercept. 3,000 swarm ships against 5,000 human vessels. The battle lasted 4 minutes. Human tactics were nothing like what the Council used. No careful positioning, no consensus-based command, no proportional response. The human ships moved in coordinated groups, their AI systems synchronizing movements perfectly. They hit the swarm formation from 6 directions simultaneously. Kinetic weapons tore through swarm ships. Missile barrages overwhelmed their defenses. Energy weapons sliced through their hulls. The human ships were faster, more aggressive, more coordinated than anything the swarm had faced before. When the 4 minutes ended, 2,000 swarm ships were destroyed. The humans had lost 87 vessels, but the human fleet did not slow down, did not stop to celebrate. They kept moving toward Axios Prime, toward the real battle. Suman watched the tactical display with satisfaction. All groups maintain formation. Second wave, prepare to engage. Remember your training. Remember why we are here. On Axios Prime, Council observers watched the battle replays in stunned silence. The humans fought with a ferocity that was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. They are willing to die, one observer whispered. They send their ships into situations where they know they will be destroyed just to complete their mission. They are predators, another said. True predators. The human fleet reached Axios Prime as the swarm prepared for a final assault on the planet. The Council's last defensive platform was failing. Millions of civilians were trapped in shelters below ground. Suman gave the order. All groups execute Battle Plan Alpha. We hold the line here. No matter what. The Battle of Axios Prime began. The human fleet split into 3 main formations. The first, led by Commander Narration, hit the swarm forces from above. The second, commanded by Admiral Kwan, struck from the side. The third smaller group, led by Captain Jiho Choi, did something unexpected. They went straight into the center of the swarm formation. They are crazy, a council officer shouted, watching the display. That is suicide. But it was not suicide. It was tactics. The center formation carried experimental weapons designed by Jiho himself. Electromagnetic pulse bombs that disrupted the swarm's coordination. Nano-weapon clouds that infected and destroyed their biomechanical systems. Gravity mines that collapsed entire ship. Formations into compressed spheres. The weapons were brutal, efficient, ruthless, everything. The Council would never have approved, and they worked. The swarm center collapsed. Their coordination broke. Individual ships began acting independently, losing their hive mind advantage. That was when the main human forces struck. The battle raged for 12 hours. Space around Axios Prime became a graveyard of shattered ships and burning debris. The Council watched from their bunkers, unable to help, barely able to comprehend what they were seeing. Human ships fought with a willingness to sacrifice that shocked everyone. When a swarm formation threatened a Council evacuation shuttle, human vessels deliberately positioned themselves as shields. 8 human ships were destroyed protecting that one shuttle. When the swarm tried to break through to the planet's surface, human forces threw themselves into the gap. Hundreds of ships were lost, but the line held. Suman's flagship took heavy damage. A swarm weapon tore through the shields and ripped open the port side. Atmosphere vented. Crew members died. But Suman did not retreat. "All batteries continue firing," she ordered calmly, even as alarms screamed around her. "We hold this position." On the surface, Velmoth watched a human ship explode directly above his bunker. It had intercepted a swarm missile aimed at the shelter. The human crew had deliberately put themselves in harm's way to protect Council members who had imprisoned their species. "Why?" Velmoth whispered. "Why would they do this?" Lauren stood beside him, watching the battle. "Because that is what we did not understand. Yes, humans are violent. Yes, they are dangerous. But their violence is not mindless. They fight for something. They protect those who cannot protect themselves." The tide turned at hour 16. The swarm had lost 60% of their forces. The human fleet was down to 30,000 ships. But they had achieved what the Council never could. They had stopped the swarm's advance. Jiho activated his final weapon. He had been saving it, waiting for the right moment. It was called the Quantum Resonance Cascade. It had never been tested in combat. The calculations said it would either destroy the swarm's hive consciousness or tear a hole in space itself. 50-50 odds. Perfectly acceptable to a human. "All ships pull back 5,000 kilometers, Jiho ordered. "I am going in alone." "Negative," Suman replied immediately. "We do not leave anyone alone. Admiral, with respect, someone needs to deliver this weapon to the center of their formation. It is a one-way trip." "Let me make it count," Suman understood. So did Nari. So did every human in the fleet. This was sacrifice. This was the human way. "Permission granted, Captain," Suman said quietly. "It has been an honor serving with you." "The honor was mine," Jiho replied. His ship, the Phoenix, accelerated toward the densest part of the swarm formation. Weapons blazed around him. His shields collapsed. His hull was breached. But he kept flying. At the center, surrounded by thousands of enemy ships, Jiho activated the Quantum Resonance Cascade. The weapon worked. Space itself seemed to vibrate. The frequency matched the swarm's hive consciousness, amplifying and disrupting it simultaneously. The effect spread like a wave, touching every swarm ship in the system. They stopped moving, all of them. Millions of ships suddenly silent and dead. Jiho's ship exploded in the weapon's backwash. He died never knowing if it had worked. But he died saving billions. The swarm forces drifted, powerless. Human ships moved through them, destroying the vessels methodically, ensuring they could not reactivate. The Battle of Axios Prime was over. Suman stood on what remained of her bridge, looking at the casualty reports. 8,000 human ships destroyed, 2 million human lives lost. But Axios Prime still stood. The Council still existed. Billions had been saved. A communication came from the planet. Velmoth's face appeared, looking ancient and broken. "Admiral Kwan," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "You saved us. After everything we did to you, you saved us." Suman looked at him directly. "That is what humans do, High Arbiter. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. Even when those beings judged us unfairly. Even when they feared us. Especially then." Velmoth had no words. For the first time in his long life, he truly understood humanity, and he wept. The war lasted 18 months. 18 months of humanity fighting alongside species who had once imprisoned them. The Terran Expeditionary Fleet moved from system to system, liberating worlds, destroying swarm nests, teaching Council forces how to truly fight. Commander Nari Song stood in the command center of a former swarm world. Around her, Council engineers and human technicians worked side by side, dismantling the enemy's remaining infrastructure. It was strange seeing aliens and humans cooperating. Strange but right. "Final report from the Western continent," a Council officer reported. His species resembled a dolphin with legs. All swarm remnants neutralized. "The world is secure. That made 156 liberated worlds, 156 planets saved from the swarm. But the cost had been terrible. 4 trillion council citizens dead, 200 worlds devastated beyond recognition, entire species wiped out, cultures that had existed for thousands of years gone forever, and humanity had paid its share. 8,000 ships destroyed at Axios Prime, thousands more in the battles that followed. 2 million human lives lost. Earth mourned its dead, but it did not regret. On Earth, memorial services were held in every city. Dr. Hana Bey attended one in Seoul, where Jiho Choi's name was added to the Wall of Heroes. His sacrifice had turned the tide of the entire war. Without him, the swarm would still be advancing. He was 28 years old, Hana said softly, touching his name on the wall. He never even saw Earth free from the barriers. He lived his whole life in a cage and still chose to die protecting others. Doyun Seo stood beside her, his own eyes red. He had studied Jiho's work, learned from his brilliance. That is what makes us human, Doyun said. Not our violence, our willingness to give everything for others. The Galactic Council was in chaos. High Arbiter Velmoth had resigned in shame. Before leaving office, he stood before the full assembly and spoke words that would be remembered forever. I was wrong, he said simply. We were all wrong. We looked at humanity and saw only danger. We saw their history of war and missed their capacity for heroism. We saw their violence and missed their compassion. We imprisoned them to protect ourselves, and in doing so, we removed the one species that could have saved us from the swarm. He paused, his 4 eyes filled with tears. How many died because of my arrogance? How many worlds fell because we were too proud to ask for help? The blood of trillions is on my hands. 3 days later, Velmoth performed the ritual suicide of his species. He died believing he had failed his people. He was not entirely wrong. Counselor Larin became the new High Arbiter. His first act was to formally apologize to humanity and invite them to join the council as full members. Not as junior partners, as equals. The debate on Earth lasted weeks. Many humans were reluctant to join the organization that had imprisoned them. But Hana argued passionately for acceptance. Yes, they were wrong. Yes, they hurt us. But isolation nearly destroyed us both. We are stronger together. We must be better than our anger. Earth voted to join, but with conditions. The council would undergo massive reforms. The rigid protocols and endless bureaucracy would be replaced with flexible command structures. Military forces would be reorganized using human tactical doctrine, and most importantly, artificial intelligence would be legalized across council space. The council has lived in peace so long they forgot how to adapt, Admiral Suman Kwan told the assembly. AI systems allowed us to coordinate our fleets perfectly. Your ban on AI nearly cost you everything. The reforms were accepted. The alternative was extinction. Investigation teams began studying the swarm's origin. What they discovered was damning. The swarm had existed on the outer edge of council space for thousands of years. They had been peaceful, avoiding contact with other species, but council expansion had pushed into their territory, destroying their breeding grounds, disrupting their hive consciousness. The swarm had not attacked out of evil. They had attacked out of desperation and rage, and the council's rigid protocols had prevented them from recognizing the threat until it was too late. Early reports had been filed, warnings given, but the bureaucracy had ignored them, buried them in committees and procedures. If humanity had not been isolated, one investigator concluded, human explorers might have detected the swarm's distress early. Human diplomats might have found a solution. Human adaptability might have prevented this entire war. The isolation of Earth had removed the one species capable of thinking outside the Council's rigid patterns, the one species that could have saved everyone years earlier. The irony was not lost on anyone. Minho Kang died peacefully at age 95, 3 months after the war ended. He had lived to see humanity free and respected. His funeral was attended by representatives from 400 species. Admiral Suman Kwan gave the eulogy. Captain Kang saw humanity imprisoned and chose not to hate. He saw our isolation and chose to prepare. He saw the galaxy burning and chose to help. He never lived to see us truly free, but he ensured that freedom was possible. That is his legacy. On Axios Prime, a monument was constructed in the central plaza. It showed a human soldier and a council citizen standing back to back, defending each other. The inscription was written in all council languages and in English. They caged us for our nature. We saved them because of it. 10 years after the war's end, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. Human colonies dotted former swarm territory. Mixed species crews were common on both military and civilian vessels. Human technology was being carefully shared across Council space. Dr. Hannah Bay's Institute for Galactic Understanding had campuses on 50 worlds. She taught Council species about human adaptability, human creativity, human stubbornness, but most importantly, she taught them about human compassion. Yes, we are violent, she told her students. Yes, we are dangerous. But those traits exist for a reason. We evolved as predators because we needed to survive. We developed aggression because we needed to protect our families. We learned to fight because we needed to defend those we love. One student, a young being from a herbivore species, raised a tentacle. But how do you control it? How do you keep from becoming monsters? Hannah smiled. By remembering what we fight for. We do not fight for conquest. We do not fight for glory. We fight to protect. That is the difference between a monster and a warrior. Nari Song commanded the new Council Defense Force. It was modeled entirely on human military structure, flexible command, rapid adaptation, aggressive tactics when necessary. But most importantly, a willingness to sacrifice for others. The old Council military fought to maintain order. Nari told her officers, both human and alien, we fight to protect life. There is a difference. Order is an abstract concept. Life is real. Life is worth dying for. Her second-in-command, a bird-like alien named Keth, nodded understanding. He had fought at Axios Prime, had watched humans die protecting Council vessels. He understood now what made humans special. You fight for each other, Keth said. Not for governments or ideals. For each other. Now you understand, Nari replied. Doyun Seo ran the Galactic Cultural Exchange Program. He helped Council species learn from humanity's mistakes and triumphs. He taught them about human history, not hiding the dark parts but showing how humans had learned and grown. Every species has violence in their past, Doyun explained to a group of diplomats. What matters is what you do with it. Do you let it consume you? Or do you channel it into protection? He showed them images from Earth's history, wars and peace treaties, destruction and rebuilding, hatred and reconciliation. We are not perfect, Doyun said. We never claim to be. But we survive. We adapt, we overcome, and most importantly, we forgive. Not because we are weak, but because we are strong enough to move forward. On Earth, life had returned to normal. The barriers were gone. The isolation was over. Children grew up learning about dozens of alien species. Humans traveled freely to other worlds, traded with alien merchants, made friends with beings from across the galaxy. But Earth had not forgotten its lessons. The shipyard still operated. The military still trained. The weapon systems were maintained. Because humans understood something the old Council had not. Peace is not the absence of violence. Peace is the presence of those willing to defend against violence. Admiral Sumin Kwan, now 70 years old, stood at the memorial wall where 2 million names were carved. She touched Jiho Choi's name gently. We did it, she said quietly. We proved them wrong. Not by being less violent, not by being less dangerous, but by showing them that violence has a purpose, that danger can be noble, that predators can be protectors. She looked up at Earth hanging in the sky above the memorial station, humanity's home. The world that had been caged and isolated, the world that had saved the galaxy. They tried to contain us because they feared us, Suman said. They should have feared their own complacency instead. They should have feared the danger of too much peace. They should have feared becoming so safe that they forgot how to be strong. A young officer approached her. Admiral, incoming transmission from the Council. They are requesting human military advisors for the outer territories. Suman nodded. Approve it. Send our best.